All right, happy Sunday. So, in this video, I just want to say I'm going to share some pretty deep things. One of the things that, um, there's a couple things that got brought to the forefront as far as what, um, what I heard and what I was reminded of this morning. Um, One of the things that that came was anything that's been done in the dark will come to light. Anything done in darkness will be exposed. But you know what? The way in which it was spoken and the way that I received it, it wasn't it wasn't like the darker things of necessarily darker agendas. It was more about our own things, like some of the things that are more dense, some of the emotions that are not as light, right? The grief, loss, pain, um, fears. That's how it was relayed to me. And the other thing, now this is super. This was really intense for me, very personal. Is something that the Lord spoke to me um, very early on, even before I knew what truly was the even before I knew truly what how the trajectory of my path was about to be changed. And this was still in a time when I was very much suicidal, and actually when he spoke these words, it was when I was in a thought process of how I was going to do that. And he said, oh my gosh, I'm going to cry. And he said to me, and he said very loudly, wait, this is your last time. And I knew in my heart that it I kind of wonder, like, what does that mean? Like, what does this is your last time mean? And so more and more I realize it's not that this is my last time or go around on this planet. It is that too. Um, but it was also the last time. Uh, and I feel like this is for many of us. It's not just me, and so I think that's why I'm feeling so much emotion. The last time that we will have an opportunity to do that deep artistry, the deep dives into those layers of ourselves that we have been so blessed to be here to heal through. And so at that time, I was lost in illusion and lies that had been conveyed and that I had chose to receive in, just unawareness and complete emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual exhaustion. Um, Lies by society, lies by um, medical, pharmaceutical industries, just lies that I would not be able to be better, get healthy, that I would have to be on medications, that there was no solution for my diagnoses and things. And so I fell deep into, hopelessness and figured that since that was the case, that I may as well numb as much as I could so that I wouldn't have to feel the pain. God has been so good to all of us with so much mercy and with so much grace. You know, the level of healing that he's poured into my life. It speaks in and of itself of his not just his mercy and grace, but his miraculous ways to be able to do that. And from there, it's always, I realize now that when he said this is your last time, it was also not about just the physical healing, but now in this particular point in time, it's about healing and working through the different layers of the emotional body and what that holds. And just by way of, and I've always been this way, I've always had to you live and you learn through living, except for I wasn't truly living before. I was just existing. Now he's giving me the gift of life to actually be experiencing, living, feeling. And through that, these experiences that are showing me all kinds of different ways in which, where I was in that place, escaping and dulling and numbing through various vices and substances. It's I'm in a place where I'm, where he's where I'm being, gifted with different situations and people that cross my path that bring forth a remembrance of those fragmented pieces of myself, so that I can do the hardestry of the soul. And so it's interesting because I've been working on something. I don't like using the word work because it doesn't feel like work, but I've been in the process of creating something that speaks to the healing of some of the wounds that have already been transcended. And it's no coincidence that this process of creation came to a pause and took me down literally a whole different path that is teaching me what I'm going to speak to right now. Because the wound that I was paused at, that I was trying to be in co-creation with God with, to be able to share, is the self-abandonment wound. And over a period of weeks, it's a gradual thing that's been unveiled to me through various ways, through the remembrance of all these past relationships and relationship dynamics, specifically romantic ones where I was in codependence to someone else. I want to say, with that desire, that hope to be saved, but not so much so where I would lose my own independence. So never truly, being able to commit to someone else fully, not just because I did grow up really independent, but also because there was a trust factor that was missing always. And indeed, there was also always a betrayal of trust attached to that trust factor, and it would work vice versa. I too have been one to betray another. So I speak to this now because it is super important. Self-abandonment is one of the largest wounds that we can carry, that we have, that's inherited and so deeply rooted and manifests itself in so many different ways. And that even when we recognize it, sometimes we don't recognize it, right? Sometimes we feel like we are showing up for ourselves because we're, maybe doing this self-care types of ways that our 3D world teaches us is self-care, right? But a lot of times we're not really taught how to go deeper within to our hearts and recognize these things, these patterns, and the behaviors that are aligned to these patterns. And so I know that at this time, whether one realizes it or not, we are being cleansed very much so of these patterns, by way of how they're showing up in our lives and how they truly are no longer functioning, right? They're no longer working the way they used to help soothe, to help cope. If you pay attention in your own life, I'm sure you'll be able to find that perhaps when shopping once upon a time worked for you to cultivate some type of stability or peace within your sphere, it may not feel like it's truly doing anything anymore, right? It's not really providing you that joy, or maybe not for the extended period of time that it once used to. Perhaps you, if it's leaning on food, it may not even taste the same. It may not even be hungry actually. It may be, I will be so transparent and honest, like I kept getting these thoughts to tell me to just go play this one machine at the casino, and I'm like, no, that's not even me. Why would I do that? Like, no, I'm not even in agreement with that anymore. And I'm not kidding. I I feel like it was part of my spirit team that made me go, or nudged me to go in there, and I finally gave in, not truly desiring to. And the whole time I was in there, and I said, Jesus, I'm going in there, and you're coming with me. And God, Father, you're coming with me, because this isn't truly a place I really desire to be in. So help me to see what it is you need me to see in here. And it was that coupled also too with an experience that I had, with encountering another soul, that showed me by way of that divine encounter. It was very much strategically designed, for me to remember and go back. And it was 1414 when I saw that. I keep seeing 1414. I was 14. Oh my gosh. Wow. I was 14. What I'm about to go into, I was gonna apologize, but I'm not gonna apologize, because that just further confirms that what I'm speaking on, as far as what I'm being shown regarding self-abandonment, and how far back it can go, and how it can seep into our other relationships, and most importantly, how it affects our relationships with ourselves, with our inner being, with the one that dwells within us. Because whatever we do to ourselves, we do to another. If we're abandoning ourselves in any way, shape, or form, it's like we're abandoning the Lord. And in the same way, when we are, in reverence to Him, honoring Him, honoring ourselves, that's how we are honoring Him, through adoration, not to someone externally, but adoration and stillness within ourselves, with the one that dwells within us, right? And devotion to Him, because He is within us, right? And so I want to share, first off, this divine encounter that I had with this soul was just, I feel, is it's like my spirit team has been taking me backwards through different relationships, and various degrees and aspects of those relationships, and how I was showing up there, and how I was not showing up as well as myself in those relationships. But this one, I did not even realize how deep this went. There are things that went so far south in this relationship, but what I'm being shown is it didn't go south because of anything to do with that relationship necessarily. They ended up going south because how I went into that relationship was at a very pivotal point in time, when I was very young. Oh, that's so funny. The word puppy love is coming up, and one of the dreams that I'm about to share with you, where this message is coming from, has to do with a puppy. But in any event, my heart was so severely broken, and I believe that this was a time when a time and place that came up. I was 14, and that, now I realize, was supposed to be the turning point for me to truly embark on my journey with God. And instead, what ended up happening was I had gotten my heart broken, because the only love that I had ever known at that point, the purest, to be like the purest that I, in my own, distorted and unhealed version of my 14-year-old self, knew, I had to go back home. And he did not live in this state. And so at that time, another relationship came in, a potential one at that point, right? And the gist of it is that rather than allow myself to go through the pain, go through the emotions, and I knew no better, someone came in with an intention to take my pain away, to make me forget that pain and that person. And like I said, I knew, I believe that, at the core of me, I knew it wasn't going to work, but I said, you could try. I said, you can try. Now, that led into that laid the groundwork for all of these experiences. So I'm grateful. There's not one thing that I would have done different, um, because all of it, every single experience, every single hardship, every single betrayal, every single patterning that is now being dissolved, was all of it a strategic and divine design, so that I would be able to be here at this particular point in time, not just for myself, but to be able to show up for for anyone that is in the process of dissolving or trying to recognize a pattern with self-abandonment wounds, how to overcome them, how to recognize them, how do they show up, and how do you tend to those wounds, right? um so I want to share the three dreams. This Our dreams are super significant, beloved one. So I would encourage you that if you have not started doing this, to really try to do this. It really frustrates me many times when I wake up and I either someone wakes me up, or I wake up and I wake up too fast and don't remember my dreams, because they really do allow us to receive messages of what's being cleared, what's being worked through, what has left to still be cleansed or purified, or even uh, to show, you know, potentially uh, the trajectory of your path, so that you can either move in one direction or another, right? So in these dreams, okay, so I'll share the dreams first. So the first dream, I was in a kitchen, um, and I knew it was my kitchen, and I was cleaning. I was looking through the drain, and all of a sudden, when I looked through the drain of the garbage disposal, it's like I was looking down at a basement, and I was using the nozzle from the kitchen sink to really hose down. It's like I was using the nozzle from the sink, but it was like one of those pressure washers at the same time. And when I looked through the garbage disposal, it was I could see the foundations, the cement foundations of a basement, and it was mucky. It was yucky. It was like muddy and stuff. And so I was washing, like, the pressure hosing off this cement basement foundation. And then I look to the side, and on the side to the left, I see this white, it was like a dirty, dingy white, I want to say fregador, a washcloth, right? Like a dish rag. And I remember thinking in the dream, wow, how long has this been down here? How does it, how is it still in one piece? Because it was down by the garbage disposal. It should have been shredded to pieces, right? And the other thing too that I remember thinking was like, how does this not even stink? It's it's wet, it's old and dirty. This is what was crossing through my mind within the dream. And so I kind of the kitchen also too, in the house, it was mine, and but also it was the kitchen of a home that if that I had on a different timeline with someone. And so it was really interesting. So I want to do a little breakdown of, I want to do the breakdown of the symbolism in the dream, but I want to break it down so that when you start analyzing your dreams, perhaps you can reflect on how this might be or show up for you. We're all so different though, so it always take all of your dreams back to God to help you work through them, because at the end of the day, only you know what certain things truly mean to you. But perhaps maybe my breaking it down can help you analyze your dreams a little bit better to see what they might be trying to tell you, right? Or reveal to you. So as far as this dream, the kitchens are, that's, kitchens is where we receive our source of earthly, nourishments, right? It's also the place where we serve others, and it's also a place where life happens, whether it be open discussions, sometimes arguments. This is a place where a lot of communication takes place, especially over meals and things like that. And so that is the symbolism for the kitchen. The sink is where we rinse off the things of the day, where we rinse off the dirty dishes, where we wash away residues from our hands, right? We clean what's been used to feed others, right? It's a place where we do the cleansing from the day-to-day activities, and a lot of emotional residue of life is shut off in this place by way of our expression. And even a lot of times as women, this is where we actually transmute a lot of things through our cooking and through our service to our families, our children, spouses, if you have one, right? Significant others, or just friends. The spray nozzle to the hose, the way that it was being used, a lot of times, you can switch the way that it sprays, right? So a lot of times it's like all over. In this particular dream though, it was very precise. It was like it had the setting to where it was just like one, and it was just, so this is, I feel, very symbolic of the fact that this dream is truly intended to serve, not just to shed light on any layers of darkness within that basement that I was looking down into of my own, but also to illuminate that the water and the way that it was being sprayed is specifically designed to target a specific wound. And as we get further into the other dreams, you'll be able to see how that is very specific to the self-abandonment wound. It wasn't just like a random, water coming out of there. It's or cleansing through just random tears. A lot of times our emotional bodies, we release through crying and tears, but this is like more intentional healing. And so even in this video right here is very, very intentional to the fact that, yes, I have cried many tears, not truly understanding or having the understanding that what I was crying about was a sense of abandoning myself, not even knowing that that's what I was truly doing. A lot of times in our unawareness, we do things we think that it's the right thing to do for the benefit of others, um, um, and don't recognize that we're leaving ourselves behind in so many different ways. And so, in the process of transcending and transmuting this wound and pouring love and light into it itself, it is a process of doing that to myself, so that whatever I do to myself, I'm also doing to my sisters, my brothers. And so, in this way, in sharing, you know, this dream, my personal testimony of my life experience enduring, and how that looked in my life, I hope that it gives you and serves to be the permission slip for you to take the time to pause and observe how this has shown up in your life, to accept it with love and acknowledge all the different ways in which this has shown up in your life, so that you can begin to heal and go through the process of nourishing that wound and cleansing it, not because it's a dirty wound, but because I guess this is where we go into the what are the other parts of this dream. Not because it's a dirty wound, but because in this dream I realized that we are the washcloths, the ones who have cleaned up the messes, absorbed the emotional residues of others, many times overused. I want to say overused, abused, and recycled. Sometimes forgotten, never properly even honored with the time to properly rinse, and many times feeling, forgotten. Clearly the basement here is what is kept hidden in the darkness in our subconscious, and what we come to end up believing through these enmeshments, through these entanglements, through these relationship dynamics, and what goes out of sight is kept in those places, in those deeper spaces where it's darker and it becomes hidden. And typically these are the places where we send things that we don't necessarily want to deal with. And so this deeper self-abandonment wound that came to me at a very tender age of 14, I'm like, wow, I'm tripping this a little bit right now, not because I didn't know what I've experienced, but because the revelation that is coming, that self-abandonment didn't begin in this relationship with this person. It began with wanting to not feel the pain of the former puppy love relationship that I had been in. And there's a lot of learning that comes from this whole experience. You know what I mean? At a soul level, it's like I'm just so grateful. I'm grateful that I'm being able to learn through this, being gifted the opportunity to heal from it, not just at the physical level of the things in the body that the Lord has healed, but healing through the layers of the emotional body that perhaps still contained residuals and residues of former experiences. The basement is the foundation, all of the stored history within the grains of the cement. The underneath of the home life and what what's is boxed up and pushed down into the basement. So all of those experiences that were too hard to deal with, too difficult, where we, or maybe we're just too busy in survival mode to recognize what needed to be cleaned up, and instead was just stored away, boxed up, not to be looked at, right? And so this is where I was getting at when I said that everything that has been kept in the dark is truly coming to light for everyone. And that's not a process of shaming. It's not a process of exposing anyone. It is truly a gift and a blessing, and a process of how we're being taught through our life experiences how to move through the layers of density through our emotional bodies. I just want to say thank you so much, God. I just want to say thank you so much, beloved. I just want to say thank you so much to my spiritual team, because I can't even begin to say that the way that this information is flowing through me and that I'm able to express myself right now is not within the means of my own personal capacities, faculties, or abilities. Like, I really had to take the time to pray before I got on here, that I would be able to speak in the most clear and concise manner as possible, and the fact that I'm not stumbling over my words like I usually do. I just want to say thank you to them, and really, really, really just amplify and glorify Yeshua for blessing me to be alive right now, to go through it, to experience, to feel, and to share the lessons that I've learned, to share what it looks like, to share how safe it is to go through it. So the cement floors, so the basement equals the foundations, the stored history, the underneath of the home life, and what we box up and push down. I digress a little bit, because I said that the cement was what was ingrained within the memories of the cement in the flooring, but that's actually the cement floors. So the cement is symbolic of what's already been hard and set, seemingly, right? The structures pointing to the old patterns, outdated patterns at that, and the belief systems that get set in to that cement, into that foundation, including not just our own, but what's been inherited, what's been passed down. A lot of the long-standing, the emotional structures and patterning from earlier on in life, and especially, from our own families, from our home. The spraying of the water can be symbolic, not just of the washing away of some of, like the mud, the mud, whatever it was I was washing off of that, but it's also the process of speaking in truth and spirit with compassion over those things that have hardened over time. Once again, the dingy white cloth is it's symbolic of the white is symbolic of purity and innocence, and of a servant heart. yet, you know, that purity was tainted and muddied. You know, it was used to clean other people's messes. And like I said, um it truly is symbolic of a former version of self who absorbed everyone else's um emotional things, right? Like a sponge, we absorb the energies of everyone that's around us, whether we realize it or not. Some of us, though, because of our soul's purposes and just the way that we're designed to be, truly sign up to take on more than we need to, have to, or should for our own well being. So, going around cleaning up everyone else's emotional spills, a coping mechanism of emotional caretakers and self abandonment. This is really symbolic of the the conditioning of what is a good girl. I remember my ex father-in-law um, used to say to his daughters, because they and I were about the same age, some a little bit older and some the same and some a little bit younger, but he used to say, God rest his soul, um, why can't you be more like Grisela? And she's such a good girl. And it used to create some friction, clearly, because, you know, here he is comparing us, right? And by way of putting one down, lifting one up, putting another down. And so it was very unfair. It's very unfair, but I don't know why I'm speaking to that. Perhaps because we all hold, you know, weaknesses, I guess you could say, or ways of being that can be hurtful to another, even as parents. But um, that was the thing. He would make me to be like I was a good girl because I was taking on everybody else's chores, cleaning up physically everybody else's messes, and emotionally, whenever, you know, one then had to cry the tears from um, or express, you know, their resentment or anger for the way that they were being talked down on. I was a good girl. So I would be right there to listen and to hold and to try and be that peacemaker, right? And so I feel like if this is resonating with you, you've been in those places. You're the one that had to maintain to be strong and and um and be the one to not break, right? You had to be the glue to things, and the forgiving one who took on everything and without fussing because it was the right thing to do. And forgiving, but yet not truly comprehending the process of forgiveness, and with the setting of the healthy boundaries physically and energetically. In this dream, the question was, how does this not stink? Like, how does this not stink? And the thing about it is that the reason why it didn't stink and the reason why it doesn't stink is because the the process of it not 44 as I'm speaking to this, the process of it not stinking is the alchemy that the whole experience of life has been breathed into this. The alchemy comes when all of this pain has been able to be turned into compassion, true compassion. Compassion for others, compassion, and even more compassion for self, when we recognize that in order to have compassion for another without creating resentment or without creating a way of being that's going to cause self-harm on all levels, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually especially, is to have compassion for yourself, to know when it's not your role or place necessarily to be the strong one, to know that it's okay if someone wants to perceive your tears or your choice to go into a little bit of hibernation, not to isolate, but to nurture yourself. To go into that place, not in isolation, because when you go into the secret place, you're not alone. You're never alone, actually. But do you see what I'm saying? It becomes alchemy when you can comprehend and realize that much of what was carried in silence, you can see and transcend that it wasn't a burden when you realize that what you did carry in silence actually allowed for love to flow in through others. Now, I'm not saying that and that's the whole point to this video. It's not okay that in order for love to flow through others that you stagnate yourself. But for the times that you did stagnate, right? Excuse me. For the times that you did stagnate or didn't realize the value in what you are actually carrying and holding in silence, what it did, that's the intention right now, is to shed light on the fact that nothing is ever in vain, that God uses all things for a greater and grander purpose. That perhaps even if it hurt you, if you had to go through it, or you went through it, or you chose to go through it in silence, whether it be because you didn't have the ability to speak up for yourself, or didn't feel safe to, or didn't have someone, or didn't know how. Everything that was carried in silence, the alchemy to that comes in observing and realizing all the different ways in which it became a blessing that these things didn't clog the flow of life for others. And so many a times, perhaps you may have noticed that you would get out of a relationship and these individuals were better versions of themselves for others in ways that they perhaps didn't show up for you. And so in this video right here, in this message, it's not about, staying stagnant in this mode of why not me, but more so look at it as, because of me, love was able to flow in that place. And take ownership and be good with yourself to know that you were able to cause love to flow somewhere. And comprehend now, in seeing this, that you can cause love to flow in other ways now. in ways where you don't have to sacrifice yourself for someone else, in ways that can communicate the lesson behind the experience so that you can transmute and transcend it. And literally, by way of doing that, and within the communication that comes from it, the wisdom that you gain from the experience, all of that becomes the alchemy, and then your ability to pour it forward, pay it forward, pour it out, and into other places or communities. That is truly the way in which you continue moving forward onto your spiritual journey, into the dharmic path, into the laying of the new foundations of which you're going to continue to co-create and build. Thank you, Father. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So here it leads into the next part of this dream. How did it not ever get destroyed in the garbage disposal was the other, question that I had posed and asked in the dream. And because it never got chewed up by the garbage disposal, being down there for so long, and that the places of darkness, not even knowing you're in darkness, right? It never blocked up the system. It just sat there hidden in the dark. Listen, I'm happy that I can laugh about it right now, but I'm gonna tell you the truth. The Lord showed me where I was sitting. The Lord showed me where I was sitting at that time when I was suicidal, and He showed me, the darkness that I was in and how my body was a buffer to that. And so our bodies really do absorb a lot, and they are a buffer to where we are spiritually. So there are many, many parts to us, and in this revelation, this is representative of the part of me that, and perhaps a part of you, that never disrupts anyone, never truly was okay to or chose to take up space never demanded any type of repair or to be fixed. As a matter of fact, you may have systemically, like just by way of possibly former experiences and childhood traumas, rejected anyone's attempt to try and fix or repair or solve something. And this is also symbolic of a version or a part of you that kept functioning, kept moving, even while the heart was on complete overload. This is a definitely an old, faithful, sacrificial version, personally, of myself. And if you're resonating with this message, there is a version or a part of you that is vying to be acknowledged and looked at. Still down in the foundations, wrapped in old messes, right? And so I definitely um, want to say that this version of you, this version even of me, is being witnessed, but it's also about knowing that it's absolutely safe to be witnessed, to be seen by others, and but most importantly by you, to be honored, and to be to know that um, to be honored, and I know that this place and time you are being cleansed of these residues, these residual things that may be stored up in your emotional body. And in order for that to transpire, there are certain things that, we need to be able to know how to process. And some of those are are easier to process and do through, practical things. There's just spiritual things that we take up, through prayer, through our petitions with God, and what we ask to be revealed to us, and then allow for it to be revealed. But once it is revealed, there are little things that we can do to kind of move through it in a practical way, to just the same way our dreams are symbolic of things. What we do on a practical level can help to for the processing of it, right? And so it's so crazy because I'm going on an hour, and that was just one dream. So I really strongly feel like I'm gonna end this video with this one dream, and instead of going into the other two, I'll just make it a 3-part thing. Because it is self-abandonment is a very deep thing to move through, to try and you know go through the motions of it. There's the emotional parts of it, but then like, here we go, there's like the breaking down of it, and then what do we do on a practical level that will help us process this wound and heal it properly, right? So that we don't go back into like old patterns that would cause it to be reopened, and then begin to bleed again, right? And then we go to the coping mechanisms to bandage it up. And so I won't go into the other two dreams in this video, but what I will go into is, let's see, what can we do to provide some kind of like symbolic closure to it once we've kind of gone into some of the ways that we transmute and transcend it. And so with that, I would say for this particular dream, if you're still resonating and this is you, we could take an old rag. It'd be a dingy white one that you've been used to clean your muebles, your furniture or something, or wash your car or something, or a mop that's been trampled on. Okay, you get the point, right? So hold it, just as a symbol of the version of you who absorbed everyone's imprints, everyone's emotional things, and speak gratitude over her or him, and speaking in gratitude over all the different ways that this version of you showed up, was able to show up for other people in the multitude of ways, whether it was physically to do something for them, whether it was verbally to extend a word of encouragement, whether it was in presence, just listening to someone, whether it was energetically when you held them up in prayer. Recognize her and thank her for all the ways that perhaps she overextended herself and overgave, because she knew no better than to do that. And just reminder that even through this video, that you're remembering her, and in that way honoring all the roles that were played out, and how much you honor her. Then you will lovingly wash it clean. It was 144 when I said that. And you may either throw it away or repurpose it consciously, meaning whatever you repurpose it for, give it a meaning, give it a new meaning, right? Give it a new role, maybe a lighter one, if that makes sense. Yeah, I just want to say thank you, God. And say thank you to my spiritual team for being here with me and helping me relay and convey this whole message through this dream. And yeah, if you're still here, I just want to say thank you. I love you so much. Have a very blessed rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon.